Yo, what is up guys? Snap here. Today we're going to be talking about the Sentinel League in review. We got a lot to talk about today. We got Sentinels, we got Archnemesis rares, we have cloud gaming, we have changes to the builds, we got mapping data, Apothecary drop rates, Brother Stash drop rates. For the first time we have unique data, which is our drop rates on certain unique items. Also going to go over the juicing setup we landed on, as well as our transition to 1 orb to 5 orb to conch cemeteries into crimson temples. I have a quick little FAQ and a little highlight reel for you at the end, so let's jump right into it. Here's a screenshot of our total week-long push. We made 23 mirrors, 365x, and a mage blood, as well as some various gumball currency that we haven't converted yet. So if you're curious about how much a coordinated 6 to 8 man party can be, especially with a trader, this is our output after 7 days of gameplay. This is what the split breakdown was. We gave 5 to our trader. We gave this amount to supplementary traders. These are the people in the map. And then down here we had Chili and Dahoon split because they basically played half and half, as Chili had to leave early. Just a quick tidbit aside on the league mechanic itself, Sentinel League. The way we were using these is just to spam rarity and quantity bots. We felt that this was the most impactful in our party, just obviously juicing rarity and quantity. Here are a few examples of the bots we used. This one was just rarity quantity. This one was also rarity quantity. Our Sentinel controller looked like this. We completely ended up dumping the Apex Sentinel. It's pretty trash, but the big focus here was on the Pandemonium Sentinel. The most important nodes here are to get the double activation on the Pandemonium Sentinel, as well as the spawn packs of monsters on deployment. Those two together is really insane, especially when you're in a 6-man party and everybody can use their Sentinels twice. And then you also have the red Sentinels that you can activate. These tag a lot of things. I think there is a choice to be made here between the empower normal monsters and then also going for the increased empowerment. I think if your map is juicy enough, you should probably only put it on blue mobs because they have a quant and rarity multiplier on them, so this makes sense. Otherwise, if you're having trouble tagging them all, maybe you can choose to get the 20% increase empowerment. They're both good choices, but this is a pretty cookie cutter setup if you want to empower your Sentinels for MFing. But honestly, the most important is to get the double activation with the spawn monsters on deployment. We felt that is definitely the strongest use case for Sentinels. To make these bots, you can just buy them on trade, or you can buy 2 separate bots with high tiers of quantity and rarity and just jam them together with really any power core. The best power core is the one that up tiers the mod tier, but you can honestly use any of them and just buy rarity and quantity ones, jam them together, hope that the quantity and rarity rolls together. Also try and get a good base type, make sure it's empowering a lot of enemies. It's also pretty straightforward. Next big change this patch was the change to Archnemesis mods. To be honest, this was the absolutely most painful part of this entire patch. We are not a huge fan of a lot of the rare changes, as are a lot of people. Particularly Pain mods is obviously invulnerable, which has now been changed to Benevolent Guardian, which is still not okay. When you do run up to a Benevolent Guardian pack, you still do encounter significant lag, significant slowdowns, people disconnect. Mods like this are really not okay. GGG. I do hope you look further into these mods that provide invulnerability, because it does have a significant performance impact and it really doesn't add anything to the game either. Some of the other really problematic mods are the ice walls, especially when the ice walls are on blue monsters. It just summons ice walls and they push you around. It's super annoying when you have phasing that you can still get pushed around by the ice walls. When the map mods have AoE, it pushes you extra far. It makes absolutely no sense that these push you with phasing. It's just super annoying to lose control of your character randomly, so that's another problem mod that we are encountering. Other than that, there's some really crazy interactions going on with damage reduction as well as Union of Souls, especially when the empowerment is coming from the robot, giving them extra damage reduction. During our push, we encountered some Union of Souls packs that had billions upon billions of effective HP, way more HP than a Cyrus or an Uber boss would have. We would be hitting it with 20 billion DPS for like a minute straight and its health bar just wouldn't move. You can really get some crazy interactions with Archnemesis mods as well as Sentinels, making mobs just virtually unkillable. I mean, we're able to kill empowered Kosis in just a matter of like 1 to 2 seconds, but for some reason there's some blue monsters that just were wailing into them with 100 BVs doing about 20 billion DPS and their health bar is just barely moving. It's just crazy stuff, honestly. Mana Siphoner, super annoying. Drought is also annoying even after the nerf, but honestly the biggest problem is early game. A lot of the mods don't become problematic when your character is geared, but it really felt like they didn't test any of these in early mapping and or in the campaign. There's absolutely no excuse that these mobs should be existing in the campaign and in the early mapping. Really think about it, we're playing the most meta builds possible with the absolute most efficient strategy, and we are just getting one shot left and right. It's really a stark contrast to be really scared of rares in your map, but then you go into an Uber boss or go kill Maven or Uber Elder, and that's like the easy part of your Atlas experience. It's just all backwards to me, I really feel like. So hopefully we see more changes to those Archnemesis mods in the future. One last thing we need to talk about before we get into the build changes here. I'm going to be talking about cloud gaming, why it's such a game changer for farming on Delirium, especially in a party. So if you're not aware, farming in a 6-man party in Delirium, you sometimes deal with lag and disconnects and crashes. And while it hasn't been super problematic in previous leagues, this league, particularly on Sunday, which was day 3 of our push, we absolutely could not map for about 12 hours straight due to constant disconnects and crashes while we were trying to farm 5-orb cemeteries. It was super frustrating just deleting exalts over and over and over again. And then the result of that is we clear 1 or 2 packs of mobs and somebody crashes and disconnects. Got us really demotivated on Sunday, but when we woke up Monday, we got a suggestion from Shotokan, shoutouts to him. He suggested we try using GeForce Now, which is a cloud gaming service. You basically can play on somebody else's machine that's closer to the server. It's all run by NVIDIA, and the people who are experiencing disconnects and crashes bought this service. It's like $20 a month, and we got to play Path of Exile. Their machines are performing super well in the maps, and because the servers are so close to the POE servers, we actually were getting like 2 ping, and it completely eliminated almost all of the crashing and all of the disconnecting that our party was experiencing, and it made our experience a lot more enjoyable. So if you guys are having maybe disconnecting problems, or you're crashing, or maybe you don't have a super high-end setup, I would super recommend looking into using a cloud gaming service like GeForce Now or similar cloud gaming services, and maybe that can make your high-end POE mapping experience with Delirium a lot smoother. It was definitely a super big game changer for us. We were super demotivated at the end of Sunday, and honestly, if we couldn't figure out the crashes or disconnects, we probably would have had some people quit. It was that fucking bad. And anyways, with all that out of the way, let's talk about some build changes that we made here. There's not a ton of changes, obviously, because there was not a balance patch. However, we are still doing small optimizations, finding things that'll help the party out. Yeah, first one is the Vol BV Assassin. This build worked out great. Not a lot of complaints. We did have great success with the 4-link that was using Stormcall. It's super helpful just to cast this, just to kill some white mobs or stuff if you run out of charges, but definitely the main ramp is the Vol Blade Vortex. Very powerful. There really isn't much about this setup that we would change at the moment. The one addition we did add this league was the Magnifier Vast Powers. We definitely 100% noticed the AoE on the Vol BVs. This is super good for the points here on the clusters. Vast Power is super OP. Definitely something I would look into doing, especially if you're an assassin. It just makes sense. Badge of the Brotherhood, I think, still is the best choice for the amulet just because it is defenses. You can use Marylands if you want more damage. One thing we did end up taking this league is Leaf Shade. This keystone is super OP with all of the new Cancer ground degens that they added. The Cold Snap one and the Burning Ground in particular are a big problem and pain points, so taking Leaf Shade can make it so you are survivable against the Cold Snap dot and the Fire dot. This is killing us a little bit at the start. I think we eventually forced everybody to take Leaf Shade so that we could remove the amount of damage over time we were taking. So definitely consider this on your carry if you're not taking it already. Other than that, this is virtually the same as it was in the planned POB. We have no problems. It was excellent. Everything was smooth. Anyways, moving on to the Aurabot. I want to include a link here to my POE Ninja profile so that you guys can flip through the time machine here. If you don't know about this feature on POE Ninja, you can basically see the build as it progresses through the days. So you can kind of see how I started on day 1. I had some dog shit on with the Trippin on. The next day I put on the Covenant to fit in all the stuff on RMR. The next day I fit in a 25% ore effect chest. We got really lucky on the Essence that had 500 ES. We kept this. We were super happy with it. I bought an Ashes early as well. We bought it for 7x. So yeah, if you want to look at all of this, click the link down in the description. You can flip through all of the gearing progression here so you can see maybe how you can progress your Aurabot. For the end game here, I didn't actually manage to buy any Forbidden Jewels. I think they were a little bit too expensive for me. They were like gonna cost me like 15x or something to get a pair of Champion Jewels, as well as elevate my chest, which was a substantial portion of my ES. So I just kind of felt like it was a little bit too expensive to go from 89 to 90 overcap. But the way you go from 90 overcap from here is to elevate your chest and put in 2 Forbidden Jewels, and that'll let you get to your 90 overcap because you're sitting at 280 ore effect for 89 overcap here. So some defensive benchmarks here. You have 6k energy shield, just above 6k, 52k evasion, 72k armor, as well as 94% spell suppression chance. If you have better jewels here, you have 35 effect. You could probably drop the mana nodes I was taking in here and maybe put them back into this spell suppression to get to 100. Not a big deal if you don't get exactly to 100, but yeah, this build is extremely tanky. The only thing you'd really die to is if you just randomly forgot to put the Vol lockout section on the map. But overall, very happy with this. Super survivable. It played excellently. The only trade-off you might make in this build is to drop 1 overcap and to take off the Wakatuki and maybe put on an Aegis Aurora. It is a very expensive shield, but if you were to put on that shield onto this build with this much armor, as well as this much other defenses, you're basically going to be immortal. I'd imagine in smaller party sizes, in like duos and trios without a mana guardian, that the Aurabot maybe could use the extra defenses just to be a little bit more comfy. And if you are sitting at 89 overcap, if your carry anoints a +2, that'll bring you to 90, and so you could could probably afford to drop the Wakatuki, drop 20 aura effect, and then become basically immortal on this character. And I think if you do have an Aegis on, it also makes the Skyforce basically a must buy. It lets you fit everything in on your life super easily, along with Ashes of the Stars. Speaking of Ashes of the Stars, I managed to buy mine for 7x before it shot up in price to about 30 or 40, I think it is now. At a price point of 40x, I 100% would not buy this item for an Aurabot if you care about your cost per power. There are some very strong aura amulets that you can make with the combinators, or you can look on trade. Ideally, you're going to get +1 to level of all skills with 20 aura effect. That'll let you hit 23 on all of your purities without a corruption, which is very important for the overcap breakpoint. So basically, you're trading out a little bit of efficiency and quality for some aura effect. It's not the worst trade-off, but definitely the next best thing to an amulet that's going to cost you like 30-40x. My rings are new this league. Basically, what I ended up doing was buying Fractured Life Reservation Efficiency and trying to recombinate them onto good bases. I managed to get them onto a Moonstone and an Amethyst base, so I was pretty happy with that. And then with a Flask on, I was barely able to cap out my Chaos Res, so I felt pretty good about it that. So I didn't really need to put the second one on an Amethyst base. So this is definitely something that you can recombinate. It's not super expensive. This is maybe going to cost you a couple exalts to get these, including the Catalyst. So this is definitely something you want to look into doing. But yeah, not a lot else to talk about this build. It's basically the exact same as the POB. Not a lot changed on this one as well. If you are struggling with degens and stuff, you actually might want to come out here and take Leaf Shade. That's maybe the only thing I would change. Moving on to the Curse Bot, this build is the exact same as it was last league. There were virtually no changes. You might be wondering why there isn't a third large cluster jewel here, and the answer for that is we just kind of got lazy and we CBA buying another large cluster jewel, so we were just rolling with the small. But ideally, you have a third large cluster jewel here with 2 Master of the Maelstroms, but honestly, if you just want the extra ES, then this works fine too. You're going to be going way into the negatives anyway with this amount of curse effect from Master of Maelstrom, and then you're still going to be multiplying their res with Eye of Malice, so this will work just fine. As you can see here, everybody was taking Leaf Shade to combat the absolute cancer Cold Snap degen that exists in the game right now, so make sure you pick up that as well. And moving on to the Mana Guardian, not much to say here. I think our ES was a little bit low this league. I think you can bump it up to like 15k even if you are soul linking, but our goal is always to spend the least amount on our characters for the effect, and this is what we landed on. One thing we ended up doing was putting in a Forbidden Flame and Flesh with Pious Path, and then using a Bottled Faith to get the Consecrated Ground. This just helps for sustaining the party. It creates a big consecrated ground that lingers, and so when you run out of it, you still get the effects of it. This is completely unnecessary. It adds a decent cost to the build that is absolutely not necessary, but it is a nice quality of life to have the regen, so this is something you can consider. Also, obviously, the 10% increased damage taken is also very good, but other than that, this build is virtually the same, and that means we're moving on to the color here. There's some small adjustments here we had to make. One extremely important thing this league is to make absolutely sure that you are getting Chaos Cap, even if you are doing it with a Flask or getting close to it. We were at 67. We actually decided to drop a little bit of rarity that we had on a jewel here to buy a Chaos Cluster to make sure that we were getting Chaos Capped, just because it is so hard to live when you're taking all of the new Chaos damage from the Archnemesis mods. There's a ton of Chaos damage that wasn't there before, so getting Chaos Capped is more important than ever. Also, Leaf Shade, of course, the Cold Snap degen particularly affects the Culler because he doesn't have a great source of regen, so taking this can be super nice to combat the Cold Snap degen as well as the Burning Ground. We ended up getting a triple Discerning Taste, but not in the preferred spot down here. We got it in the Shadow Cluster. We did have to rework our build a little bit to account for the lack of life nodes and stuff that we deleted over here. This is also why it was such a struggle to get the Chaos Reses, because we were deleting the Chaos Res nodes here. If you can get your Legion Jewel down here, it deletes a lot less. I mean, it can be a little bit of a stretch to fit everything in if you get it in either of these spots. Other than that, we did end up getting some life rarity jewels and some voices. Voices were super cheap, like less than an X, and so we just put in some life rarity jewels all around here to get some stats as well, bump up the rarity. Additionally, one thing to note here about the Culler is that we ended up life tapping our Kinetic Bolt here as a source of degen instead of leveling up our Corrupting Fever. Corrupting Fever here can be a little bit Monka-S on the life pool. The degen becomes a little extreme, and life tapping the Kinetic Bolt, I think, gives you a little bit more control over how much you're degenning yourself in between that 50% threshold to stay, low life, so that you can keep your distillate active the entire time. Other than that, there weren't any major adjustments to the Culler, just some small adjustments to life tapping our Kinetic Bolt, and then also using a lower level Corrupting Fever so we weren't degenning as much. And then also we had to adjust the tree a little bit to account for the fact that we were deleting some nodes up here with our Legion Jewel, and that was about it. Last but not least is the Miner. We debuted this build last league. It has been super successful. The 5x damage multiplier that this build can bring to the table is undisputed. included in any other flex support build, so we're definitely just going to be rolling with this until it either gets some changes or something more appealing comes along. One of the big appeals of this build as well is it is dirt cheap to gear, maybe a few X, minus of course the absurd price of Aegis Aurora this league, but even then this shield is not completely necessary. You could definitely start with a Wakatuki shield and get a little bit of extra aura effect on your mines and your other auras. I have included here in the POB the Animate Guardian gear if you're curious what we've been using. All right, now that we've gotten through all the builds, let's get to the interesting part, which is the mapping data as well as the unique data that we've collected from our push. So we counted all of the maps we did using MAPWATCH, and we also counted all of the div cards that we dropped while doing it. We kept a counter, so we're able to get a pretty good idea on the effective drop rate of div cards in both Cemetery and Crimson Temple. I'm going to be providing a link down to this spreadsheet in the description, so feel free to look through all of our data if you're curious on the drop rates that 6-man teams with fully efficient gear. So a few notes on this data set. We only took fully juiced, winged, elevated 5-orb cemeteries as well as Crimson Temples. We did not include any data from our 1-orbing or our 5-orbing without conch influence. I did include that data on the all map data down here if you want to look through all of the maps that we did, but it isn't super representative because there is different levels of juicing here. If you want to get the most accurate data for full juice, you want to look at Crimson Temple only as well as Conch Cemetery only. So starting off here with the Crimson Temples, we ran a total of 63 maps, and we dropped a total of 19 apothecaries. We unfortunately were not counting the Enlightened card, but we estimate it to be about the same rarity as 7 years, but unfortunately we were not counting those cards, so we don't have a great data set for that. Now, we do need to account for the number of bricked maps that we have in this pool because there was a variety of insta bricks, or what we call full bricks, where we only completed maybe like a minute of the map and we had to leave immediately due to a disconnect or a crash or a death or anything like that. We also had a variety of half bricks here. We had 18 of them, and this can be from a variety of things where we complete basically maybe half the map and then somebody disconnects or crashes, or maybe 1 or 2 people are dead but our Culler is still alive, or vice versa. Those are what we call half bricks here, and we've counted those here, and we have 18 out of the total 63. Out of all of the maps, we had a total of 38 full completions where we killed all alvas and everybody was alive. We try to come up with a number which is a rough estimate of the number of like effective maps completed. So we try to come up with a number which is basically including all of the half bricks and the total bricks as well as the full completions, the number of effective maps we've completed based off of the time it took us to go through the maps, and that number is 48. So if we use that data, we were getting a 0.39 apothecaries per effective completion of the map, and we were getting a 1.3 7 years bad luck effective completion. The average time it took to complete the map was around 14 minutes. We were inside of the map for a total of 14.47 hours, and our hourly apothecary rate was 1.3 per hour. Using all of this data, excluding the Enlightened card, that brings our average div card value per map to 15.3 exalts only on the 2 div cards that we counted, which was Apothecary and 7 years bad luck. In comparison to Cemetery, we did 41 cemeteries and dropped 32 brothers stashes. We did have a lot more bricks on Cemetery because we were still kind of figuring out our setup, and so our effective maps ran was about 34. Our stashes per map with bricks removed was right about 1, which is very in line with what we had last league, and it should be a little bit higher because they did add dual influence with the altars, and so it makes sense that it's a little bit higher than our last league average of 0.9. Now, the div card value of brother stashes in this map is 4.64 exalts. We do not have a great value for the unions that we have per map, so we didn't include that here. Also, in this spreadsheet here is going to be a bunch of data regarding the uniques that we have pulled out of all of these maps. Basically, we wrote a script that goes through the guild stash logs and can basically determine what kinds of items were going in and out, and we try to give a best guess of the number of particular valuable uniques that we've sold. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be 100% accurate, but maybe it can give you a good guess on the types of uniques you're going to be pulling out of these maps. So it's just some interesting data to look at. If you want to flip through it, go ahead. I think it's very interesting. For example, we pulled out 272 cold iron points. We also pulled out over 200 Rumi's flasks. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that we also stopped picking some of these up because these dropped in value, but it's still quite interesting to see, you know, the things that we're dropping in the map, and we've also split it up by day, so you can see maybe when we stopped picking them up as well. A few more things to go over here. This is our atlas for the juicing setup that we were using, the full endgame atlas. I'll go ahead and include a link to this here. There are a few small changes from the atlas trees that we had before. We ended up taking Eldritch Gaze. This node is super insane. It's giving you a ton of unique dupe and a ton of div card dupe. And spoiler alert, because we had so much unique dupe, we actually duped a Squire and a Mage Blood. We'll have clips of those at the end. One thing we did not take was Wrath of the Cosmos. This league in particular with all of the Archnemesis mods was so insanely rippy. We didn't really want to take a bunch of extra damage, so we did not end up taking this, even though I think if they do turn the Archnemesis mods down a little bit, especially on some of the blue packs and stuff, you could probably consider taking this, especially if you have really good gear. If you're not familiar with the baselines of how we're juicing, I would refer to my previous video as how to juice your maps in 2022. Much of that information is super relevant as well. The scarabs and the sextants have not changed, so I definitely flip back to that video if you're interested to see a full overview about how we're juicing our atlas. Yeah, I think that about sums up the league for us here. I do have a quick highlight reel of some of the insane drops and some of the funny moments here that we experienced during the league, so I hope you guys enjoy. And once again, I'm Snap, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next league.
Jules.
Abyss, help me.
Oh, fire.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my fucking god! We duped a Squire! Oh my fucking god! We duped a Squire! Oh my fucking god!
I'll carry them out.
What the fuck? Like, there's no
set
way.
It up and then you have like this super juicy map and
Oh my fucking god!
holy
Ching, 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 ching.
double
Here's bad
highs.
luck. Okay.
Snap, can you not flashbang your screen? What the fuck just happened there? Oh my god.
Wow.
4 cold iron points.
That's a new record.
That bottom one too bad.
I think it's
No,
fine.
fuck,
5
it's
cold
fine.
iron points.
The 5 it's a cold iron point seed.
Yes, cold iron points.
5 gold iron points in like 2 seconds.
The sheet theory, it's real.
Does someone have one?
Is it double mage one? Where?
No way. What?
Where?
No way.
Where? What?
No way.
No fucking way. What?
This is my revenge. Fuck you guys.
Step on all of them, step on all of them.
Oh my
God.
Bot, everybody bot right now.
Oh my
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pulling.
Goodbye,
Heads.
game.
Everybody bot.
We're crashing with a mage blow on the ground. It's happening.
1 FPS.
Just kidding. We
Look
have,
what you made Evan do.
we're party play cheating with like fucking. Oh, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm dead.
We're party
What is
playing
going on in here? Well, fine.
Enlightened. Oh my fucking
God.
god.
The hell was that one?
Oh no.
No, that wasn't Ernie.
What about the effigy? Cat's favorite.
My timer went away.
Oh,
it's
yes,
back.
and then it came back.
See, alright, we got plenty of time now.
Explain that one, atheist.
This is time traveling.
Oh, gosh,
What?
Explain that one, atheist.
What?
How are you not dead?
I wasn't standing on whatever the fuck exploded on all 4 of you
Good luck,
dumbasses. Put it in the map. Or daddy's gonna get angry. I'm coming. What?
Just leave, I guess.
How?
How
am I supposed to leave?
Did my flask? What is that? What is that? What is that? What is going on? What? I want red too. Why isn't Rasmus getting? I'm dying. I'm my recovery. That mod is so bullshit, GGG. That mod is not okay. How is that in the fucking game? What are they smoking over there?
Turns off my healing.
What is that?
We landed on the gear dead.
Landed on the.
How many alvas? Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god! What?
crossing over, guys.
700,000 items!
700,000 items.
700,000.
Apothecary!
I got an apothecary.
There it is.
35x. He's dragging.
Trying so hard.
He's dragging. He's trying to scroll up. It doesn't work.
He's trying to...